Hi, me again. We're here at Lake LBJ. It's a sunrise. It's early in the morning. It's about the only time you can do stuff out here because it's July in Texas, in the hill country, and let me tell you, it gets hot here during the day. It's been 100 and something degrees here every day for days and days on end, and it's pretty hot, pretty dry right now.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Tell you what, we're here today to talk about knife handles. Not a real sexy subject.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of different kinds of knife handles, a lot of different types, a lot of different makes, a lot of different models. And we're going to talk about all of them today. Knife handles, that's the subject of today's video. So the first handle material we should talk about is wood. Wood's the most common handle material. It has been for centuries. You probably have some knives in your drawer that are wood-handled knives. We all do. Wood can come, though, in a lot of different categories. Let's talk first about softwood and hardwoods. Softwoods would be something like a cedar or a pine. It's a good example of a softwood. There goes a skidoos.
Permitted to. Squirrel!
Redwood might be a softwood. Softwoods are just that, they're very soft. Now they can make beautiful knife handles, and they've been used for a long time for knife handles, but they're soft. They're going to mar very easily, they're going to scratch easily. Hardwoods, much better, obviously. Oak, ash, maple, cherry, hickory, desert ironwood, they're going to be more resilient. If you're going to have a knife handle, I would choose hardwoods over softwoods any day. All right, next category of wood, exotic woods. Rosewood, beautiful stuff. Purple heart. Purple heart is really nice. It's a very purple color, but then once it oxidizes over a period of time, it'll slowly turn this brownish color. Beautiful wood. Tiger wood, babinga, cocobolo, ebony, all beautiful woods, all very hard, very resilient, high in oils. You could cut them right from the tree, turn them into a knife handle, and make a beautiful knife handle. And there's a whole bunch of them now that are available out there. Yeah, they're pricey, but boy, they hold up really nicely. And they've been used, just like other woods, for centuries, for everything from knife handles to musical instruments. Now, the one thing you have to know about woods, you have to stabilize them.
Hey everybody, so I get a lot of questions about what it means when I talk about stabilized wood or when it's on my website. What happens is I take a chunk of wood, I put it into an oven. After 12 hours of being in an oven at 220 degrees, I start weighing the wood. I'm watching the weights go down because that means once it stops losing weight, all the moisture is gone. From that point, it goes into a vacuum chamber. It gets covered in cactus juice stabilizing resin. I turn on my vacuum pump. It could run anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours. I run it until the bubbles stop. So it's kind of like squeezing a sponge underwater. Once I pull all of the air out of the wood, we're going to then let it soak for twice as long as it ran. What I'm doing is I'm adding a lot of weight to the handle material, but I'm also preventing it from swelling and shrinking, and you get an amazing product. It's just what I do, and I love this part of the process.
You're adding an element to the wood that keeps it from expanding and contracting, because wood moves a lot with weather, wood moves with moisture, wood moves with temperature, and it moves a lot. That's not a good property for wood. Now the hardwoods, especially the exotic woods, move less than the softwoods do, but when you have hardwoods, you really have to stabilize them. When you have a lot of materials, you need to stabilize them. In the exotics, you don't typically stabilize an exotic wood because they're so high in oil content, and because they're already so hard and so dense, they don't stabilize well. So something like an ebony, or in some cases rosewood, it depends on where it comes from, but the exotics oftentimes are not stabilized because they're just naturally stabilized. One more category of woods that we need to talk about. So the last thing we need to talk about regarding wood handles is probably the highly figured wood handles. You have like a fiddleback figure. When we talk about figure, we talk about the lines and the swirls that are in the wood itself. So a fiddleback is very nice. Bird's eye maple is very, very famous. It has little bird's eyes in it. Those are beautiful as well. But you also have spalted. Spalted is where a disease gets into the tree, or the tree is damaged and it grows around the damage, and that creates a very wild kind of figure. And that's beautiful in a piece of wood. Now that you definitely want to have stabilized, but spalted is very, very nice. Burl wood. Burl wood is very similar to spalted. Spalted is generally made because of a disease or because of damage. Burl is generally made because it's a couple of branches coming together, or it's the root ball of the tree. When you actually pull that root out of the ground, that root ball, all those figures, all those fibers kind of go together in a nice swirl, and it gives you a beautiful figure in the wood. That also stabilized looks beautiful on a knife handle. So if you see spalted maple or burl maple, you know now what that is. But wood handles, beautiful stuff. The next category is antler or stag. Stag, antler, they're interchangeable. Stag handle knives, beautiful stuff. We've loved them for years. They've been around for centuries. Stag, grown from a deer or an elk, moose is considered stag. Stag handles are very, very resilient, very tough stuff. If you consider that deer fight with it, elk fight with it day in and day out. So it's got to be pretty resilient. It's also very lightweight. So a deer antler makes a great handle. Some people stabilize it, some don't. You don't have to. Some leave the bark on it, it's considered the bark, or some people take it off, or they do a combination of the two. But stag, horn, very, very nice. Next category is horn. They can use horns from like cows, or water buffalo is very big. Beautiful horn. You can use ancient horns as well. You find that occasionally. Horn is a beautiful material, again, very resilient, very similar to stag, only a different look. And it comes in a whole host of different colors. Now, if it's ancient stuff, if they've dug it up, it's actually pulled in some of the minerals from the surrounding soil, and it can come in all kinds of different colors. Also, you can stabilize horn as well. Horn, when it's stabilized, they can add dyes to it. Well, they can do that with pretty much stabilizing anything. They'll add dyes to the stabilization. Horn handles, very nice. Another category, teeth. Not my teeth, like ancient teeth, like mammoth teeth. They left behind their pearly whites, and those pearly whites make for a great knife handle. Now, it's highly figured, it looks different. They can be somewhat fragile. They can be stabilized, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Also, warthog. Hakuna Matata. Warthog is another source, kind of a tusk or a tooth, kind of an in-between, but makes a beautiful knife handle. You know, beautiful pearlescent white. There's some companies down in South Africa that use warthog tusk a lot, and I don't know that it's so much a tusk that it is a tooth, but beautiful stuff. Bones, they make great knife handles too. They've got to be stabilized. You don't want to do a regular, just a bone that you find anywhere and just put that into a knife handle. You want to do something to it. Most of them are stabilized. Most of them are colored with a dye. They've been using bone in knife handles for centuries, from pocket knives to hunting knives to you name it. Bone handles are very, very popular and very, very resilient, as you can imagine. Most of the bone that's used actually comes from the shin bone. The shin bone is the hardest bone in the body. It takes the biggest beating, and it seems to be the densest bone. So if you're going to use a really dense bone, it's probably the shin bone. If you drop it, it's very, very hard, but it can't crack. It is a natural material. But bone makes a great knife handle. Micarta is another category unto itself. It's a synthetic. We're getting into the synthetic materials now. Micarta is a layered material with polymers. So you can take linen, layer that with some polymers, press it, and then obviously dry it, and that will give you a linen micarta. You could do the same thing with paper, which gives you a paper micarta, or canvas micarta. Beautiful stuff, easy to work with, makes great knife handles and extremely resilient, very, very tough. If you're going to have a survival knife or a tactical knife, chances are it's going to be a micarta handle. Great stuff to work with. Now micarta comes, as you can imagine, in all kinds of different materials and colors. Linen, paper, we've already mentioned, canvas, pretty much any material you can layer and put in the polymers and shape it and call it a micarta. Also feels good under the hand. Now that micarta can be polished, or what they can do is rough it up. Usually they do it with a bead blaster, but they rough it up so it feels like a linen. You know, it feels soft to the touch. One other category is G10. G10, what the heck is a G10? Well, G10 is actually very similar to micarta. It's a layered material, but instead of using all these other materials, things like linen and paper and so forth, pine cone, to make your micarta, you're going to use fiberglass. Fiberglass layered with the polymers and then pressed is going to give you G10. We make a distinction between G10 and micarta because G10 is just different. You can actually shape G10. You can put all kinds of little ridges and peaks on it to where it gives you more of a grip. And G10 is used a lot in tactical type knives, hunting knives, places where you need a very tough handle that's a little more grippy, that has a little more texture to it. So you can shape it and put in a much sharper shape to it. So when you're putting the texture in there, it tends to be a lot more grippy. But G10 makes a great handle, comes in every possible color you can imagine and then some, and love the stuff. So you'll see it everywhere, but there is a distinction between G10 and micarta. Carbon fiber is another very popular handle material. It's pretty new onto the scene. Of course, carbon fiber has been around for a little bit now, but you know, we haven't seen it for centuries because it was only invented some 15, 20 years ago, I guess. 15 years ago? I don't know, but it hasn't been around all that long. Carbon fiber, though, makes a really nice handle. Very, very tough, as you can imagine. Very resilient. Very, very lightweight. You see it mostly in tactical knives, but you will see it out there. Now, there's real carbon fiber, and then there's not so real carbon fiber. But the real thing, good stuff, makes a great handle. And it's very interesting looking. It's definitely different than a lot of the other handles we've been talking about. Generally, you'll see it in black, but there's other colors now too. And you know, they weave other materials in and out of carbon fiber as well, so we're beginning to see more of that. Gemstone composites is another category. We don't see these a lot. Oftentimes you'll see the gemstone composites actually within a handle where there's a fracture in the handle, or it'll be part of a handle, but you'll see some of that as well. Gemstones in general, you'll see occasionally actually inlaid into knife handles. Oftentimes you'll see the composite materials made into blocks, and then they'll use it to put stripes in a handle or to fill a certain area of the handle. Gemstone composites, there's definitely a place for them in handles, as well as a lot of other materials. Now, I won't go into every material that's out there. There's everything from neoprene to, well, you name it, all kinds of semi-precious and precious stones they use in handles nowadays. Everything you can imagine you can put on a knife handle, and they do. And they're beautiful. But suffices to say, if you get a knife, you want to make sure that handle is resilient. You want to make sure the maker is doing a great job in making the handle and that it's warranted. So that if something goes wrong, you have somebody to send it back to. Whether it's a company or a knife maker, that you have someone to send it back to get it repaired. Knife handles, not all of them are as resilient as others, but generally speaking, the knife maker is going to, if he's a good knife maker, he's going to make sure that that handle lasts for years and years for you. And that about sums it up for knife handles for me. Coming from the beautiful shores of Lake LBJ, I'm Richard with Bear Claw Knife and Shear. Do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button for me. It certainly helps our algorithm and gets more people to see these videos. And if you can, ring the bell for me as well. Also go to bcknife.com. That's our website, bcknife.com, or come visit us in Midland, Texas. That's where you'll find me on most days. From Lake LBJ, Horseshoe Bay, that's it for now. See you next time.